Well, it's transfer deadline day here in the Premier League, and after months of ignoring our biggest issue, John Murtough has gone defender crazy. Hopefully, we'll get a few in before the transfer window slams shut, and then we'll try and get revenge against rivals Manchester City. Yes, hello and welcome along to part 128 of the Head Coach with me, Daniel. We are back today to face neighbours Manchester City, with us both joint top of the table after 5 games. Nobody else has more than 10 points, which is odd. But we've also got some problems. Firstly, I left it out of the intro, but we have reverted to type. I've bottled my beloved diamond after a few very poor performances, and while we're still training it in the background, we have gone back to the tried and trusted. We've had awful problems with injuries this season already. It may be a problem for the next few games, but for now, the big focus is on deadline day and John Murtough. We're fortunate that we've got a relatively winnable Champions League game to start. There's a few absolute stinkers in our group though, so if you're looking forward to finding out who they are and who comes in to Manchester United today, then please do put a thumbs up on the video. Hopefully we'll do better against City than we did in the last episode in the Community Shield. But for now, let's go and have a look at the transfer window and the schedule to see what's been going on. We'll start with the transfer window, of course, because it has been a relatively eventful few weeks. Not so much on the transfer history because no one's come in. And in terms of the outs, it's only really been a few backup players. So David Walker has left the club, as did Ricardo Ribeiro. Walker's gone to Celtic, Ribeiro to Mallorca. Harry Hall and Darren Shields have left as well. Harry Hall permanently to Stoke. He's a youngster with a bit of potential, but probably wasn't going to make it at United level, if we're being honest. So those guys have left the club. No huge shocks there. But we have got to look towards the future now, because we need players in for deadline day. We mentioned the fact that there was no backup right back in the last episode. Well, he's trying to get 3, 4 or 5 of them now. So firstly, he's done another very good deal for a young centre-half on a very similar basis to what we saw with Contreras. Now, this guy Felipe, I saw him pop up in a scout report maybe a month, maybe 2 months ago. He was a youngster at Zaragoza with a 4 million release clause, and thankfully, he's managed to get him in. He's a pretty good character, he's fairly professional, he's great in a tackle and header. And although he does dive into tackles, it's maybe not the worst thing when you're as good as he is. I like the fact that he's good on the ball as well. His positioning is exemplary. And maybe he is missing a little bit physically at 17. But he's going to be a gem of a player. I've no doubt about that. So he's agreed to join the club next summer. He's on loan at Zaragoza till the end of the year first. That is a really good deal for this football club. And maybe for next season, we're again building a dynasty for the future. The big one, though, after months of having no sign of a right back coming in, is that he suddenly went for 2 in the space of 3 days. Now, one of them is being negotiated at the moment. It's not the first choice I would have had because we've seen some gems in the scout reports, but he's a very good right back. And that man is Fabio from Olympique Lyonnais. It's about 20 million up front, rising to 40, a relatively modest wage. And let's be fair, he is a huge upgrade on what we had with Solis. The slight negative is that his jumping reach isn't great. He's only 5'6", but he can play the holding role if we end up back with the diamond, and in an emergency he can cover at left back as well. A very good player, a good signing, and you know I love a defender with great positioning, so I've no complaints there. Then a day later, weirdly, it's been rejected now, but he made a loan offer for Jakob Jensen from Strasbourg. No idea what he was planning to do with this if Fabio came in as well. Is he maybe looking at selling Humphreys or maybe even one of the left backs? I don't know. It was just a really odd deal to come about. Strasbourg, as it happened, rejected it because they'd already accepted a permanent offer from Villarreal. So us and Bournemouth pretty much out the question with our loan bids. We've had loads of loan offers rejected for Matthew Vella, who has become one of the stars this year, and Ariel Garcia, another rejected bid from PSG. But let's go and have a look at the schedule, because Matthew Vella has become one of the stars of the show, certainly in the opening few games. We lost to City in the Community Shield, and in the first 2 league games we played the Diamond. After that, we've gone back to our tried and trusted. So we started the league season at home to Liverpool. We played 70 odd minutes in the Diamond. Then we made some subs and went to a 4-2-3-1. And then Matthew Vella scored the equaliser off the bench. We had Adrian Smith off injured, his old problems with England creeping up again. But you can just see the star players, Baysal, Demeter, Guido, they just didn't suit the style and they weren't playing at their best. We then played against Nottingham Forest away from home, and this was arguably the more alarming game because although we won it, George Robles was man of the match and we really struggled before we changed again. In the last 25, we brought on Vella, we brought on Joseph Taylor and put them in the two wide areas. And guess what? Matthew Vella crossed for Taylor to win the game. So there was no real argument to not go back. It immediately led to a dominant display. 3-0 was the lead after an hour against Brighton. Demeter scored, as did Ocon with a brace. And to be fair, he was playing up front in that game and did pretty well. But at the hour mark, we were able to rest people and bring youngsters on against a Brighton side that had been perfect in their opening two games. So I think it told us what we needed to know. We won 1-0 at Blackburn with Joel North, but as you can see, it was a game that was dominated by first half catastrophes. We picked up 2 injuries in the first 25 minutes, both to very key players. Joseph Taylor came on for Guido. He then missed a penalty in the first half. And although we battered them, it took a while to break through. Not the same issue against Southampton, though. Joel North is gradually ending his unhappiness. He got a brace, as did Joseph Taylor. And Emir Baysal scored one as well. Lots of players in the stars with goal drought. So Demeter ended his against Brighton. Baysal ended his against Southampton. It's something that in competitive games we need to get flowing. Charlie Humphreys, as you can see, got injured in that one. But we are getting some other players starring as well. One Heavier has played really well in the absence of Smith. And Joseph Taylor has yet again been a real sensation, even largely off the bench this year. So let's go and get into deadline day. There are 15 hours of the transfer window to go. We're being linked with a centre-half from Bournemouth, a winger from Strasbourg, and Fabio with a deal being done. And a few players being linked with leaving as well, but do not sell our first choice goalkeeper or centre-half. And Joel North, our top scorer of last year. We need them all at the club. 15 hours left. This is how it stands. We've got 65 million to spend, 318 grand of wage budget available. And let's be fair, half of that's about to go on Fabio, but the squad is still looking pretty good. Let's go and see what happens during the day. We'll be back for any updates, as hopefully John Murtough will not ruin our summer. Well, here's an interesting start for you. We've picked up where we left off with our Manager of the Year award by adding Manager of the Month for August. But you can see from about halfway down the screen, just above my head, there is a transfer offer and we know who this is for. Lima is the centre-half at Bournemouth we were linked with just an hour or two ago. So let's have a look at him. How much is the offer? Another Brazilian. We keep signing hundreds of them, don't we? He's wanted by loads of clubs, so I'm not going to get too excited. But here is the offer. 45 million for a 3-star centre-half who can also play in midfield. He is, pretty good to be fair. We get him up as a centre-half. He's 6 foot tall. He's not the best on the ball, but he's a good defender. He's okay in the jump. He's very good mentally. The anticipation, the marking, the tackling, the strength. He's got a lot of positives. And as a squad player at centre-half, yes, I'd probably like to bring Contreras through, but if we're looking at this season and competing, having 4 top centre-halves is a good one. He's a squad player at Bournemouth. He's not in their first 11, so it makes perfect sense for us to get him. 14 hours to go, and hopefully I'll next be back to say one of these two is arriving. Well, 3 hours have passed, and we have a big problem. Fabio, the Lyon right back, has rejected us despite John Murtough offering to virtually double his wage. We are now back in the no right back territory because he's gone for 2 and he's managed to get neither of them. Lima can't play right back at all, so even if we get him, we're in trouble. He's been offered a wage cut too, so I'm not sure he'll take it. I mean, Contreras can play right back a little bit, but we're clutching at straws a tad if we get to that stage. You can see from the injuries we're in a bit of trouble. We really need a right back in. 11 hours, John. Do not let me down. Well, more rejected offers for Joseph Taylor at the top. Not even 15 million for a man who scored 15 Premier League goals last year. But we have got a centre-half coming in. Lima is joining from Bournemouth. He's taken a wage cut from his previous club, which is great. He's on a 3-year deal. He's a good defender and holding midfielder. And to be fair, he does improve the squad. But the problem is, he has now accounted for, 2/3 of our remaining budget? And there's 40 million quid left to get us a right back. Now, he could go back in for Fabio. He could go for something else. But at the moment, it's pretty much desperate measures because we have to get him in. We are taking his individual training on. We've got him registered for the squad. Hodgkinson, you go and say hello to him. Now, John, you've got 10 hours to do the job. Well, there's one word on my mind as we return with 4 hours to go. Betrayal. John, I gave all summer to praising you and the work you've done and giving you plaudits for the players you've brought in. Now, on deadline day, you've not delivered me a right back, and what's worse, you're about to sell my backup left back. We could go into 4 competitions with no backup fullbacks whatsoever. Ariel Garcia has had an offer accepted for 31 million quid, another 11 million if he makes 20 league appearances. Strasbourg and Metz, by the way, 2 of the biggest clubs in Europe in France, they've gone nuts. I just don't know what to make of this. He has rejected another offer for Joseph Taylor, but that is a small consolation for the position we could be in. No fullbacks been offered for, nobody coming into the club. I just don't understand it. Why would you create such an imbalanced squad? How would you look at this squad planner now? He is planning a squad around this, John Murtough. He's looking at right back and going, oh, we've got one right back in there. He's injured. I'm going to leave it. Let's go to left back as well. Oh, we've got an injured first choice. We've got Ariel Garcia and then a centre half who can cover out there. Let's sell the backup left back. Whereas in midfield, let's have 8 players who can play the same position. Oh, I'm losing my rag. I was 4 hours away from having a fairly happy window. And John might be clutching defeat from the jaws of victory. We'll see if there's any offers for players coming in. But I'm not a happy man at the moment. Well, it didn't take him long to go, did it? How much did we pay for him? 34.5 million. He's made a loss in 1 year. Ariel Garcia is off to Strasbourg. We've got 3 hours to go and he's not making any bids. So he's going to sit on 56 million quid this time. We've got more wage budget than we had at the start of the day, yet he's still not offering enough to get deals done. I'm baffled at this point. You've got to get me one, John. Surely you've got to do something. There's 1 hour to go and it's not going to happen, is it? We have now got to a position where we've got a really competitive squad and no fullbacks. I mean, why would you do this to me? We are really stuck. We're going to have to start retraining people, but there's not many suitable candidates. There's a couple of very average youngsters in the under-21s as well, but how are we going to end this day weaker than it started? We've brought in a good centre-half, but then we've taken away versatility from the squad. This is a problem. John, you've let me down. Manchester United, after a really promising summer, have left me again to pick up the pieces. Might have to make that move after all. Well, there it is. The transfer window is shut, and due to the business on deadline day, we are left with just 1 left back and 1 right back, both of whom are injured at the moment and probably for the next game too. The transfer deadline has passed. One heavier came in earlier in the summer, the biggest deal and a great player. Lima came on deadline day for big money and is a good centre-half too. But Ariel Garcia leaves the club, Juan Solis leaves the club, Banderson retires, and none of those 3 are replaced. The player wage expenditure, it's 8th in the Premier League, it's half of what City and Tottenham are paying. I mean, I don't know how we expect to compete. Newcastle's is fairly low as well, you've got to give them credit. But the Premier Division roundup, we had 33 players out, we had the biggest deadline day deal. But again, we have left the squad unbalanced. We've got great midfield options. We've got great forward options. But I need to see which of these midfielders is best defensively. Because guess what? They're going to be my new Mathieu Flamini. They're going to be trained at fullback. Let's get ahead to the City game in 10 days' time. The chance of revenge is pretty slim because we go to the medical centre and we get up the current injuries. We're not going to have Charlie Humphreys. We're not going to have Isaac Simmons. We're not going to have Guido. And the problem with the first 2 of those is we now don't have any backups. Back in a minute for our big Manchester derby. Well, we're back following the international break for our fitness tests, and I'm afraid it's a story of more injuries. We might have Isaac Simmons back for this one, which is great, but let's be brutally honest, there are more problems, because if we go back to the medical centre, where we were a minute ago, Marco Demeter and Matthew Vella, both right-sided players, are now out injured. That adds to Guido, who can cover there as well. So I think Joseph Taylor might be our only option. We'll wait and see. If I take you quickly through the training centre as well, I've got a few players training as fullbacks now. So I'm training Jones as a left back because he's pretty close there anyway. I'm training Hervenhoff as a right back because he's pretty close to being good there too. And with Lima coming in, it could then be Lima, Develay, Hervenhoff potentially. I'm also giving up Sol Julien. He's going to be training as a left back too. he is a player who is not really close to the midfield options, so hopefully he'll be able to become decent in that position. But today it becomes an issue of what do we do on the right-hand side? Right back and right midfield are problematic, and we're going away to the champions, our rivals, and a side that beat us 4-0 in the final a few weeks ago. Now, thankfully, they've got David Godwin out, who scored all 4 on that occasion, but they're bringing in Prete up front, who has caused us a few headaches over the years. They've also got Spasov and Castañas, who have scored bucket loads against us in the past. So let's go and get this 11 picked. It might take a little while to decide, so I'll be back in a minute once we've done it. Well, I've got a big decision to make here because there is something tactically I've been working on that I might want to try in this game. Because if you look at what we've got now, we're going to have 2 inverted wingers with Taylor coming in on the right. And we've also got 2 centre-halves at left and right back. So I'm feeling I want to protect the defence a bit more. And I could change to this, which is exactly the same tactic, but with 2 defensive midfielders instead of centre mids. And then ideally, we protect the fullbacks, we have 6 defenders, and then we just let the front 4 go and do their thing. It's almost identical to what we were playing anyway, and I think that's what we're going to do today. So, we're back to the bare bones, I think you'd say. Hervenhoff is our emergency right back. We've got 5 centre midfielders on the bench, 1 injured defender and a goalkeeper. A young right winger who we signed a few weeks ago, who may well make his debut here. And then Contreras is the sole defender who can come on. We've got Lima making his debut at the back. Everyone who's fit is in the squad. And it means our team today is this, not what we wanted for the derby. Robles in goal, Hervenhoff and Jones the fullbacks, with Lima and Deverlay as centre-half. We've got Heavier and Hodgkinson as the 2 defensive midfielders. I've never played with 2 defensive mids before. Heavier got sent off on his Spain debut, but apart from that, it's all good. We've then got Taylor off the right, who will become an inverted winger, and we'll organise the switches with Baysal. And then Henry Ocon behind Joel North up front. He's finding his goal threat again, and I'm hoping it will last today, because we desperately need some goals. Let's go and get through, give the squad number to Lima. He's going to be number 3 for this year. And we'll be back in a minute for kickoff, and hopefully a successful day. Well, we know all of the England defensive stars in this Manchester City team. We know what Jurgen Klopp can do, and we know what Manchester City can do, because they did it to us in the last episode in the curtain raiser. So the main thing for us today is an inverted winger for Joseph Taylor, and then those 2 will learn to switch during the game. Him and Baysal can hopefully cause some trouble. I don't know whether to put the fullbacks onto defensive duties because they can't really attack or cross, so it does make sense. But if we look at the positive side of things, we might be a bit better at the back post from crosses. But we're going to go and get straight into it. 4 players attacking, the rest are defending. I've no idea if this tactical tweak will work, but we might find a revelation for away from home, because no matter what we say about the last 2 years, we have been awful on the road against the top half teams. And if we can find a solution that just limits the threat, but without us not having any attacking opportunities, then maybe it's the way to go forward. So no harm in trying it. As Heavier gets the ball to Jones. He cuts back and finds Lima. Into midfield for Hodgkinson. From that deeper position plays the long ball. But the one thing we are missing a bit today, bar Baysal, is that out and out pace up front. It's what Demeter offers. Vela offers a fair bit of it. Guido's pretty electric. Whereas today we're relying on Taylor's not the quickest. North is a bit more of a target man type. And to be fair, Ocon, he's more of a bulldozer. As Spasov gets down the left, our former Palace man, running rings round Hervenhoff, who doesn't really know how to play right back. As Ocon, what are you doing? We can set up any tactic you want. If you then pass them in 8 yards out, Ocon has just laid it back 20 yards. He didn't have any pressure on him, really. He didn't have to go backwards there. But instead, he's passed it straight to the centre forward. And it's 1-0 to City. So we're not going to know if this game plan works now, because they're 1-0 up. They've got on top early. And we've basically given them an assist. No, not basically. We've literally given them an assist. 25 minutes gone. We're going to encourage, because they're not playing that badly. But how we've had a shot and 0.00 expected goals, I don't know. Especially when it's a shot on target. And we've now got an injury to Kieran Jones, the utility left back. I mean, this is a pretty dire state, isn't it? Even Ariel Garcia would have helped today, and having a debutant in the middle is not ideal either. We didn't have Simmons quite fit enough, so I wasn't going to risk him for a game that, even with our first 11, we may have lost. It's more important we're consistent in the others, keep getting in the Champions League, and make sure we do well in that competition too. It's really frustrating this, because if we'd had our first 11, we might have been competitive. We might have learned something. But here, I mean, we're basically just trying to cling on. I cannot believe that John sold the left back. I can't believe that when Fabio and Jensen didn't join, he didn't even look at another right back. He obviously knew it was an issue because he made 2 bids and then just ignored the fact we needed one. We're 2-0 down. Kieran Jones has got the injury and he's been done in behind again. I'm going to bring on Contreras. There's no point risking it with Simmons, who's aggressive. He's already got a knock. We're 2-0 down. We're not going to win this game. So let's just get the youngster on, get him some football. It's not an ideal scenario, but we're 2-0 down. I can't really work out that expected goals, but the fact that we gifted them one at the start, it basically sums up the day. We'll get to the hour mark, bring on some younger players if need be, but for now it's about keeping it respectable, something we didn't manage in a Community Shield. Well, 25 minutes to go. It's been quiet in the second half, and we have got Champions League in midweek, so we're going to have to keep a focus on that. What I'm going to do is bring on Gulstroff for his first ever appearance for the club. He'll come on as a right winger. Joseph Taylor, he can play anywhere, which helps us for midweek. We're also going to take off, well, it's going to have to be midfielders, isn't it? Because that's all we've got. How is Ocon one of our best rated players? He's going to go up front, or is he? No, we'll keep North up there. We're going to bring on Adrian Smith as the number 10. We'll have to go now to 2 centre mids because we've not got options on the bench. So we'll go back to what we were doing previously. We'll get the fullbacks back onto defensive duties, and then Heavier and Hodgkinson will get a rest. They will be replaced by young Sol Julien, who can get an appearance as the Mazzala. In fact, he might have to switch sides because Antonio Carlos will be the other man coming on. They're the 2 substitutions in midfield. 5 changes made, 25 to go. And it's about clinging on. And I guess if we see what happens in the last 25 minutes, we'll know whether it's right or not. They keep switching positions on the wing as well. I turned it off before we made the subs. I find it really annoying because we've turned it off at least 3 times in the last 15 minutes, but it just seems to be stuck there for life. As North gets the ball and brings it back to centre half for Deverley. Out to Hervenhoff at right back. Got to say, Lima's done alright as we give the ball away again. Antonio Carlos has provided the assist this time, and thankfully it's offside from Spassov, but I cannot legislate for the fact that we have gifted them opportunities, literally gifted them ones. And okay, we're at a very different level with our squads, and we are down to the bare bones in 3 or 4 positions, but this is a huge concern for us because we're still not competing with the very best sides. It is a big problem that with 4 or 5 injuries, we're left with that sort of lineup, which is a big, big problem. Let's go and get through the dressing room. We offered nothing today. It's going to be a long old season when we play the big games, and I still don't think we found a tactical solution. Well, there we go. We lose 2-0. We stay in second place, which isn't the worst in the world, but I did promise I'd show you the cup games, which have not been friendly at all. We're talking about winning trophies, creating a dynasty. We've got Arsenal away in the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup. That's not going to be an easy tie. Can't even really rotate due to the injuries. And while we start with Copenhagen in the Champions League, which looks okay on paper, we then go away to Bayern Munich, who won it last year. We go away to Ajax, who are flying. We go at home to Olympiacos and Hoffenheim, which we arguably should win. And then Real Madrid at home, Porto away, and Fenerbahce. Bit of a cauldron away in Turkey. We're going to come back pretty sharpish, I think, because there's 2 big games coming up at the end of the month. Away to Crystal Palace, where I don't think we've won yet since we've been in charge. A defeat and a draw against our former club on the road. And away to Bayern Munich, the champions of the Champions League. Well, let's see how they compare to the champions of England. After that, we will leave it a little while and maybe show the Real Madrid game in December. If you're looking forward to that and you did enjoy this one, John Murtough giving me headaches and Manchester City giving me problems on the pitch, then please do put a thumbs up on the video. If you want to stay up to date and see if our problems worsen, then please do subscribe and turn that notification bell on. We'll be back in a couple of days' time to face the champions of Europe and our former club. But in the meantime, we will be back with a big summer transfer special in our Build a Nation Save tomorrow. We had our end of season review yesterday. That playlist is up in the eye above. It's alongside the Twitch channel, the football podcast and the blog posts as well. But thank you very much for watching. Your support through another rocky episode. John Murtough is going to be the death of me. We'll be back in a couple of days' time to put our focus firmly on the pitch.